Welcome to Note Lab Mode.
And today's No Lab Mode is brought to you by clofit.ai,
That's right. If you're looking to connect influencer outfits directly to your product inventory, making their content instantly shoppable.
which can really drive more sales and higher order value. Definitely check out cloutfit.ai.
Yep, that's CLOUTFIT.ai to learn more.
So today we're diving into personal productivity, organization.
Yeah, that feeling, right? Being completely swamped, maybe ideas buzzing everywhere, tasks just piling up. I think we all know it.
We do. And our research, it really digs into how to cut through all that noise,
Mm-hmm.
how to get a clearer mind, that sense of relaxed control.
Relaxed control, I like that.
Mhm.
Because the research suggests it's actually possible, right? To be highly productive without feeling totally buried.
Exactly. It's about having the right approach, managing all those commitments, all that input.
Without just reacting all the time.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because the old ways, the old-time management tricks, they often don't really stack up anymore, do they?
Not really. What's interesting, though, is the research seems to suggest we probably already have the basic skills needed.
Right. It's more about applying them differently, more strategically, more consistently.
Yeah, taking charge in a new way. It's not about some super complex new system necessarily.
It's more like refining how we operate already.
Mhm.
The research even hints at, a real paradigm shift.
A fundamental change in how we look at our work, just by getting a better handle on clarifying and organizing everything.
Absolutely. So if this sounds interesting to you, definitely share this Note Lab mode.
Yeah, and subscribe. You won't want to miss where we go next.
Okay, so let's think about the modern work landscape for a minute,
It's changed so much.
hasn't it? The research really highlights this trend towards, more autonomy. People acting more like free agents, even inside big companies.
Plus that constant pressure to grow, to do more, and the work itself feels fuzzier.
Yeah, more ambiguous. There's just so much information, constant communication flying around.
And the old tools, what we learned in school or those basic time management seminars.
They just feel inadequate. Trying to prioritize, say, 200 emails with an ABC list.
It feels kind of quaint now, doesn't it? Life isn't that neat.
It really isn't. But you raised a good point earlier. Are we just saying apply old skills?
Right, because some of those skills might be tied to those outdated models. How do we know what to keep?
Well, the research suggests it's not about blindly repeating old habits. It's about taking the core principles, organizing, planning, and applying them with more intention.
More deliberately, tailored to today's reality.
Exactly, like upgrading your mental toolkit, not just dusting it off. That systematic approach seems to be the key to getting that control back.
Okay, so being more mindful, more adaptable. Now, one thing the research really flags is stress from commitments we haven't managed well.
Ah, yes, the internal commitments, even the ones we aren't fully conscious of.
They can really drain you, even if you don't feel stressed in the classic sense.
Mhm.
Tackling these open loops can apparently free up a surprising amount of focus.
Open loops, yeah. That's anything pulling at your attention that hasn't been resolved or put in its proper place.
Could be huge things like end world hunger.
Yeah. Or tiny things like replace the pencil sharpener or hire that assistant. Anything incomplete.
Until you get a handle on those incompletes, they're just sort of humming in the background.
Exactly. Sapping mental energy,
Hmm.
which leads to this idea of transforming stuff.
Define stuff for us based on the research.
Okay, so stuff is basically anything that's landed in your world physically or mentally,
Yeah.
but you haven't decided what it means or what the next step is.
It's the raw input, the unprocessed emails, notes, ideas.
Precisely. And the research suggests a lot of organizing systems fail right there. They don't help you transform this stuff.
It just stays as this big, undefined pile of shoulds.
Right. It's not actual work yet. The research contrasts stuff with real work, which has a defined outcome and a clear next action.
That's a great distinction. Most to-do lists, when I think about it, are really just lists of stuff.
Often, yeah. Partial reminders, unresolved things, they haven't been fully processed into outcomes and actions.
But the research says there's a big payoff for doing that processing.
A huge one. Getting current, getting control of all that stuff, your inbox, your notebook, your head, and having routines to stay current. It frees up bandwidth.
For more creative thinking, strategic work.
Exactly. People often report feeling lighter, more energized, more inspired even.
Like clearing your desk, but for your brain. That initial processing step can create real momentum. So how do we start? What's the first step in processing the stuff?
The research points to a very simple first question. What is it?
Seems obvious, but I guess we often skip that.
We do. We let things pile up without even identifying what they truly are. A request? Information, an idea. Once you know what it is, the next critical question
Is it actionable?
exactly, does it require you, personally, to do something?
Okay, and if it is actionable, what then?
Two key things to figure out, according to the research. One, what's the desired outcome? What project is this related to? What does done look like?
Defining the end goal.
Right?
Fine.
And two, what's the very next physical action required to move it forward? Not the whole plan, just the immediate next step.
Like call Bob or draft email about X.
It's
Very specific.
super specific. Now, what if it's not actionable?
Ah, okay. What are the options there?
Research suggests three main paths. One, it's trash. Get rid of it, delete it, recycle it. Done.
Simplest action.
Often the best. Two, it's something you might need later, but not now. It goes into incubation, maybe a someday maybe list or a tickler file for a future date.
Park it for later.
Right. And three, it's reference material, information you might need to find again. That needs a good, reliable filing system.
Got it. So trash, incubate, or file for reference if it's not actionable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for all the actionable stuff, we need those organizational buckets.
Right, the research mentioned categories.
Yeah. You need a list of your projects, those bigger outcomes needing more than one step.
Okay.
You need storage for any project plans or support materials related to those projects.
Makes sense.
Then your calendar. That's crucial.
For time-specific things.
Absolutely. And then your lists of next actions, what you need to do next. And finally, a waiting for list.
Tracking things you've delegated or are waiting on from others.
Precisely. And the key takeaway here is that all these categories, projects, calendar, next actions, waiting for way, they need to exist somewhere tangible.
Physically contained, like a specific notebook section, a digital list, a folder.
Exactly. Giving them a defined home makes the system trustworthy. You know where to look.
Okay, let's dive into the calendar and those action lists a bit more. They have different jobs, right?
Very distinct roles. The research is clear. The calendar is only for things that have to happen at a specific time or on a specific day.
Appointments, deadlines, meetings.
Right. Or even day-specific information like travel day, things tied hard to the calendar.
And the action lists.
That's for everything else you need to do as soon as you can in the appropriate context. Your calls to make, errands to run, things to do at the computer. They're not tied to a specific time, just next.
Got it. Calendar for the hard landscape, lists for the more flexible actions. Now, keeping this all working requires maintenance. The research talks a lot about the weekly review.
Ah, the weekly review. It's presented as absolutely critical. It's your time to pull everything together.
Gather all the loose ends from the week.
Yeah, all the new stuff that came in, notes you took, emails, process it all, review your lists, look at your calendar past and future, check your project statuses, get clear, get current, get complete.
It's like a mental reset button for the week ahead. The research connects this to building trust in your system, right?
Absolutely. If your system isn't complete, if you suspect things are falling through the cracks, you won't fully rely on it.
And then you won't do the review, and it gets worse. A vicious cycle.
Exactly. But the more complete and current it is, the more you trust it, the more you use it, which keeps it complete. It's a positive feedback loop.
The research used a great analogy, that feeling before a vacation.
Yeah. How you proactively clear the decks, confirm things, renegotiate commitments. The weekly review is about building that proactive clean up, close up, clarify habit every week.
Instead of just before you disappear for 2 weeks. Makes sense. So we've processed our stuff, we have our system, we're doing our review. What about the actual day-to-day work?
Good question. The research offers a helpful model here, suggesting our work generally falls into 3 types of activities.
Okay, what are they?
First, doing your predefined work. That means working off your next actions lists, tackling those things you already decided were important.
The planned stuff.
Right. Second, doing work as it shows up. The unexpected email, the urgent call, the colleague stopping by your desk, the reactive part of the job.
Which is often a big part.
Usually is.
Yeah.
And third, and this is often neglected, is defining your work. Processing your inbox, breaking down new projects, clarifying outcomes, deciding next actions.
Ah, so it's not just doing, it's also the clarifying and organizing itself that's considered work.
Absolutely essential work, according to the research. Stepping back to define is just as productive, sometimes more so, than just executing tasks blindly.
Okay. Now, shifting gears slightly, the research talks about natural planning techniques. What's that about?
It suggests that really effective planning isn't some rigid, formal process we have to force ourselves through. It follows a more natural flow.
Like how our brains already work when we're motivated.
Kinda, yeah. It starts with understanding the purpose. Why are you doing this project? What are the guiding principles or values?
Getting clear on the why first.
Crucial. Then vividly envisioning the successful outcome. What does it look like, feel like, sound like when it's done?
Creating that mental picture.
Right. That naturally leads into brainstorming, just getting all the ideas out there, good, bad, crazy, everything related to achieving that vision.
Unfiltered idea generation.
Exactly. Once you have that raw material, then you organize. You identify the components, the sequences, the priorities. Structure emerges from the brainstormed ideas.
Okay, makes sense. Purpose, vision, brainstorm, organize.
And finally, always circling back to what are the very next actions needed to move each part forward?
It does sound more intuitive than, say, a complex Gantt chart for every little thing. It taps into that natural goal-striving process.
That's the idea, especially clarifying purpose. The research really emphasizes asking, what are we really trying to achieve here? It can unlock so many better ways to get there.
And the principles, the values, acting against those causes friction, right?
Huge friction. Making them explicit helps guide decisions smoothly. Then that envisioning success. It's like it tunes your perception.
You start noticing things that can help.
Exactly. The research says you won't see how to do it until you see yourself doing it. Then the brainstorming captures all that mental energy that sparks up.
Get it all down without judging yet.
Right. Organizing follows that naturally. And always identifying that next physical action. That keeps it grounded.
Okay, let's talk physical space, home office, work office. The research says consistency is important.
Yeah, very much so. Having a functional workspace in both places, ideally with similar systems, reduces friction. You don't have to mentally switch gears about how you organize.
It even cautions against that hoteling trend where you don't have a fixed desk.
It does.
Yeah.
Partly because we have that mind factor, we like our own setup, but also because reestablishing your basic tools and systems every day actually takes a surprising amount of mental energy.
Interesting. Keep it simple and consistent. What about tools?
The research still champions the basics. Plain paper, one thought per sheet is good sticky notes, paper clips, stapler. Low tech can be very effective for capture and quick organization.
And filing. How should we think about that?
Well, distinguish between your general reference files, articles, notes, brochures, and more critical systems like contracts or financials.
Okay.
For the general stuff, a key tip from the research. Keep the drawers less than 3/4 full.
Why is that?
An overstuffed drawer creates unconscious resistance. You hesitate to file things because it's a pain, so things pile up elsewhere. Make it easy, fast, and as even fun to file.
Avoid the friction. And what about the typical desktop clutter? Mail, memos, phone slips.
Those are prime examples of stuff that needs processing, not piling. Same with meeting notes, business cards. Decide what they mean, what the action is, or file them.
The research also suggests creating inventories for things like supplies or professional goals.
Yeah, it's about capturing those often unspoken open loops. What supplies do you need? What are you waiting for from IT? What book did you need to read for development? Making them explicit gets them out of your head.
It all circles back to having that easy-to-use reference system within reach.
Absolutely. If finding or filing something is a hassle, the whole system breaks down eventually.
Now, there's a specific rule mentioned that sounds really practical, the 2-minute rule.
Ah, yes. Simple but powerful. The rule is, if the next action on something will take 2 minutes or less,
Do it now.
do it right then. Don't defer it. Don't track it. Just do it.
Why 2 minutes? Is that some magic number?
It seems to be the efficiency cutoff, according to the research. It generally takes more time and effort to store, track, and later retrieve a task than it does to just complete it if it's under that 2-minute mark.
Makes sense. Just knock it out. The research says many people see big productivity gains just from applying this consistently.
Huge gains. It clears out a lot of that small, nagging stuff surprisingly quickly.
Okay, so for things taking longer than 2 minutes, we need to track them on our action lists. What kind of categories does the research suggest?
It lists common contexts, calls you need to make, tasks to do at computer, errands to run outside, things that must be done at office or at home.
Grouping by context so you can batch similar tasks.
Exactly. Also, agendas for people or meetings, and read review for longer items.
Let's talk about those agenda lists. That sounds useful.
Very. The research suggests having a separate list for recurring meetings and also for key individuals, your boss, your partner, your direct reports, maybe key clients or advisors.
So when you talk to them, you have your points ready.
Right. You capture things you need to discuss with them as they occur to you, then review the list before you connect. ensures nothing gets missed.
Smart. And the read review pile, how to manage that beast.
Keep it curated. The research stresses this should only be for longer-form things you genuinely commit to reading when you have focused time. Don't let it become a dumping ground or a source of guilt.
A realistic pile, not an aspirational library.
Exactly. Then there's the waiting for list. Super important.
This is tracking things you're expecting from others.
Yes. A complete inventory. What did you delegate? What info did you request? Who owes you what by when? It gives you control and allows for systematic follow-up.
Without having to keep it all in your head. And the research warns against using, say, meeting notes as the reminder itself.
Right. Don't keep the meeting notes in your action pile just because there's one action item buried in there. Extract the action onto the appropriate next actions list or calendar. File the notes as reference.
Keep the action list clean and clear.
Absolutely. And for managers who delegate a lot, the research suggests potentially having a separate projects delegated list.
Just to track those higher-level handoffs?
Yeah, gives a good overview of what your team is working on that you initiated.
Okay. What about project support material? Plans, background info?
Again, the research says don't use them as your primary action reminders, but do keep them accessible, maybe in project-specific files or a pending stack you review regularly. You need the context sometimes.
Makes sense. And capturing those quick ideas related to a project?
The research loves sticky notes for this, physical or digital. Jot down that back-of-the-envelope thought and attach it directly to the project on your list. Keeps the idea connected.
Okay, moving beyond actions, reference information, like phone numbers.
Purely reference, the research emphasizes. Your contact list isn't your calls-to-make list. Keep reference info separate, easily findable, but out of your action system.
And how we store reference is always changing with digital tools.
Constantly. The key principle from the research is accessibility based on need. How often do you need it? Where will you be when you need it? That determines whether it lives in your planner, your phone, cloud storage, office files.
Tailor it to your workflow. Now the tickler file, that sounds intriguing. What's its purpose?
It's an incubation tool, as the research calls it, a way to have something surface for your attention on a specific future date.
Like a reminder for something time-sensitive.
Exactly. Pay estimated tax on April 15th, or check on conference registration opening June 1st. You can put physical documents in there too, using dated folders.
So you'd have like 43 folders, 12 for months, 31 for days.
That's the classic setup, yeah. You file the item in the future dates folder. The absolute critical thing the research stresses is you must check today's folder every single day without fail.
Otherwise, you can't trust it.
You can't trust it, and it becomes useless. Daily check-in is mandatory.
Got it. What about checklists?
The research sees them as particularly useful during transitions, new job, new role, new project area. They can be temporary scaffolding to make sure you cover all the bases until the routines become automatic.
Get comfortable using them when needed.
Yeah, both ad hoc ones and maybe some permanent ones for recurring complex processes.
Okay, so we have the weekly review, but the research also mentions a broader review process.
Yes, beyond just the weekly tactical review. Maintaining that clear head and relaxed control requires ongoing attention. It means building the habits and having the right environment and tools to support the system.
Making time for the weekly review, even when you're swamped.
Especially then, the research urges even senior execs to block out that time, recognizing it's about the truly important, not just the seemingly urgent.
And this methodology can extend to bigger picture stuff too. Goals, career.
While that's not the main focus of this specific productivity method, the research notes that having the day-to-day under control absolutely frees up mental space and provides a framework for engaging more effectively with those higher-level goals and reviews.
Makes sense. If you're not constantly putting out fires, you can actually think about where you're going.
Precisely. And an interesting side benefit mentioned is energy management.
How so?
When your system is clean and clear, even on low energy days, you can look at your lists and find small, easy tasks, quick calls, simple emails. Closing those loops can actually help build momentum back up.
Instead of just staring blankly because everything feels too big.
Exactly. Now, the research also fully acknowledges that a lot of work isn't predefined.
Right, the stuff that just shows up.
Yeah, the reactive part of life and work, sometimes that just becomes the priority in a moment, and that's okay. The system helps you get back on track afterwards.
It provides the rails to return to. The research also mentioned moving from horizontal control managing actions across life to vertical control.
Yeah, that's about diving deeper into specific projects. The natural planning process we talked about, It often involves actions like brainstorming, organizing ideas, setting up meetings, gathering information.
Those planning-oriented next actions.
Right. And a useful tip for brainstorming, using a word processor.
Why specifically that?
Because then your brainstormed ideas are already digital. Easier to cut, paste, edit, organize, and integrate into project plans or other documents later. Less retyping.
Smart. Now, what about when we break agreements with ourselves, that feeling of letting yourself down?
Ah, yes. The research suggests 3 mature ways to handle that feeling. 1, don't make the agreement in the first place if you're not serious.
Be more realistic up front. Learn to say no, even to yourself.
Exactly. 2, complete the agreement. Just buckle down and do it. Even small completions, like the 2-minute rule, give a psychological boost.
And the third option,
Renegotiate the agreement. Consciously decide, okay, I'm not going to do that now, maybe I'll do it next month, or maybe I'm dropping it entirely. Make an explicit decision.
instead of just letting it hang there, creating guilt.
Precisely. This all ties into trust and communication within systems, too. Not just personal systems, but teams, organizations.
How does that connect?
Well, intact systems rely on responsiveness. If emails go unanswered, if inboxes are overflowing, if people are constantly interrupted, trust erodes. Things break down.
Interruptitis, as the research might call it.
Yeah. But conversely, the research suggests that clear personal and team systems can actually foster more warmth and freedom.
How? Seems counterintuitive.
By handling the mechanical stuff smoothly and reliably, it frees up mental and emotional energy for better collaboration, more creativity, more genuine interaction, less stress about things falling through the cracks.
So good systems enable better human connection, potentially?
That's the idea. Now, everyone's system will look different, but the core principles of accountability for outcomes and managing your workload, those are key.
And it often requires that sophisticated skill of renegotiating commitments as reality changes.
Which absolutely requires a bulletproof way to capture all those commitments in the first place so you know what you need to renegotiate.
It all comes back to capture and clarity, which
Right.
leads us nicely to that core technique you mentioned, the next action question.
Yes. The simple, incredibly powerful question, what's the next action?
Just asking that breaks things down.
Instantly.
Yeah.
The research credits consultant Dean Acheson with really driving this home. It forces you past the overwhelm, past the ambiguity, to the very next physical, visible thing you need to do.
Call, email, draft, buy, talk to.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
It makes it real and doable. And interestingly, the research suggests that really smart, creative people often have the most trouble with this
Why is that?
because their projects are often bigger, more complex, more amorphous. It's harder to pin down that single next step amidst all the possibilities, so things stall.
The stuck piles.
Exactly. The research suggests everything on our mental or physical list creates either attraction, ooh, I want to do that, or repulsion, oof, I want to deal with that. Lack of a clear next action almost always creates repulsion or anxiety.
Because you don't know where to start.
Right. But figuring out the next action is something you have to do eventually anyway,
Yeah.
right before you actually do the task. So why wait? Defining it up front when you first process the stuff saves mental energy later and prevents procrastination and crises.
And it applies to big long-term projects, too, not just small tasks.
Absolutely crucial for those. Defining the next action for your 5-year goal keeps alive and moving. Even if the action is just schedule a meeting to discuss initial phase, it maintains operational responsiveness.
It also feels more empowering, doesn't it, asking, what can I do next?
Totally. The research frames it as undermining a victim mentality. Instead of, oh no, this huge problem, it's, okay, what's the next step I can take? It fosters agency.
And ultimately, defining projects and next actions just leads to a better quality of life, less stress, more accomplishment.
That's the core argument.
Mhm.
The basic principle, repeated throughout the research. Determine the desired outcome and the next physical action for everything you consider work, and combine that with regular brainstorming. Those are the key behaviors.
So wrapping up, the big takeaways from the research are really about capture, clarify, organize, and review.
Yeah, getting everything out of your head, deciding what it means and what needs doing, putting reminders in a trusted system, and looking at it regularly.
And woven through all of that is the power of defining the next action.
The absolute engine of productivity, according to this approach.
It really is striking how these practices, which sound simple on the surface, can apparently lead to such profound shifts. Less stress, more clarity, more getting done.
They seem simple, but implementing them consistently takes discipline. The payoff, though, is that feeling of relaxed control we talked about at the start.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah, here's something to try. Think right now of just one open loop in your life, something that's been nagging at you, something unresolved,
Could be anything, big or small.
anything at all. Now, just ask yourself, what is the absolute next physical action I could take to move that forward? Don't think about the whole project, just the very next step.
Maybe it's making a phone call, maybe it's doing a quick web search, maybe it's writing one sentence.
Whatever it is. Identifying that single next action, the research suggests, can be the tiny start of a really significant shift towards feeling more in control and ultimately having more peace of mind.